Hi, this is Dr. Richard Ruling, and here to welcome you to the Total Health Channel. I want to address the topic today, President's Day for Seventh-day Adventists. And Christ said, though, that all you are brethren, which means that we shouldn't have presidents of conferences, presidents of unions, presidents of divisions, and general conference 4 levels above pastors who should be like brethren. And bottom line is that EllenWhite responded to that vote in 1903 that how has the faithful city become a harlot? Because the Catholic Church has also 5 levels: priests, bishops, archbishops, cardinals, and pope. So we're similar. She said, how has the faithful city become a harlot? My Father's house is made a house of merchandise, a place whence the divine presence and glory have departed. That was in 1903, but the next year they incorporated those changes. EllenWhite said, we can't enter into any new organization, for that would be apostasy from the truth. But they did it. And she wrote in 1905, the great apostasy which is developing and increasing will continue till the Lord descends from heaven with a shout. That's in Special Testimonies, Series B, number 7. I happened to buy a copy at a camp meeting probably around 1973 when I was going to 8 camp meetings with the School of Health team. I was a cardiologist and reading the treadmill tests, but I picked up this book. Didn't really read it for about 15 years. In the late 80s, I was shocked to read that statement, and I found a man's name in the back of my book and called him up and said, why is your name in my book? He said, well, I was custodian of the General Conference, and they called me up one day, said, we have some extra books we don't need. We just want you to stoke up the furnace, we'll be down. And they tossed EllenWhite's Special Testimonies into the furnace. When they walked out, he choked the fire out and published them under his own name. But it suggests that they didn't want that discovered. But EllenWhite, as a true prophet, foretold that it would happen in her comments on Jeremiah 36 in 4th volume of the Bible Commentary, pages 1159, commenting on Jeremiah 36. She says, this chapter is a record of historical events that will be repeated. Let all who desire to receive warning read carefully. Well, is it a warning to say that they burned her book? Obviously, today they speak lovingly of Ellen but that's like the Jews speaking of the prophets of old. He says, you whitewash the tombs, but you're the children of those that persecuted them. So it's not a good situation, and I believe that we're in big trouble, and judgment is coming. Christ said in Revelation 10:11, we must prophesy again after the bitter belly experience of 1844, when none of those messages that the pioneers gave fit. They proclaimed a time of judgment, no evidence of judgment, in terms of what the world saw, and the world didn't burn, they weren't raptured, etc. So, but they gave 3 messages really: time of judgment, Babylon is fallen, and the bridegroom comes. All 3 of those messages will fit now, okay? Because judgment is impending, and you will know it when I happen to have here a vision at the time of the end. This was what Christ said to understand when he was asked about the end of the world, to understand Daniel. In the 8th chapter, verse 17, it says the vision at the time of the end, and in verse 20, it's the ram's horns are the kings of Media and Persia, and the goat horn was the king of Grecia that flew from the west historically. But what is to come has been already, it says in Ecclesiastes 3:15, and I believe animal horns were cut off to blow through and make a trumpet. Trump is the great horn on the goat, and it says in verse 8, Daniel 8:8, that it makes the goat great. Well, he wants to make America great, and I believe it'll happen But it's sooner or later bad news that's coming. When Muslims are urged, like President Erdogan of Turkey urged 57 Muslim nations to siege Israel, they will get it done. Zechariah 14 says Jerusalem will be taken, the city, the houses rifled, the women raped, half the city goes into captivity. And then the Lord's going to roar from Jerusalem, heavens and earth shake. That's the earthquake that we hear about in Handel's Messiah. And the desire of all nations, which is Christ's kingdom, will come. But there's a date given 3 times in that chapter of Haggai 2, verses 10, 18, and 20, before again it says that the Lord will shake the heavens and the earth. And favorite author EllenWhite says, be careful when God repeats something, it's important. Well, it says the shaking is twice, and 3 times it says the temple foundation is built. This is not about the 3rd temple, though, that the Jews are going to build to kill or sacrifice lambs, because they rejected the lamb of Isaiah 53 when Messiah came. They missed the Messiah. And God's going to let the Muslims drive them out because they think they're the only ones that deserve Jerusalem. Well, I believe when the Muslims drive the Jews out, God's going to drive the Muslims out with the earthquake. So it's going to be interesting times in April and May. No man knows the day or hour, but as the days of Noah, when the flood came with Passover timing in the 2nd spring month. So let's tune into that and consider how it works, that we can be ready at Passover time on the eve of Passover in May. And by the way, Ellen White's Dark Day in her Great Controversy book, explaining, you can Google it, by the way, Dark Day. Google has it as also May 19, 1780. Unexplainably dark, Ellen White says, when cows came in the middle of the day, chickens went to roost, needed a lamp in the middle of the day to read a newspaper. But guess what? It was repeated on the 200th anniversary. 200 years later, May 19, 1980, was also a dark day because Mount St. Helens erupted and put ash into the sky, and overnight, wind carried that ash to darken 3 northwestern states on May 19. I believe God was marking May 19, and this year, May 19 falls on the last day of Passover, time of judgment. And so I think get ready for May and keep the Passover in the first day, really, on the evening of May 12 to 13. We should celebrate the Lord's Supper. That's what Christ used to institute in place of killing lambs and eating bitter herbs. It's in the book Desire of Ages, page 652. As he, Christ, ate the Passover with his disciples, he instituted in its place the service that was to be the memorial of his great sacrifice. So in place of Passover, we should do the Lord's Supper and then watch and pray as he asked his disciples. If we're watching and praying when he knocks with an earthquake, as Luke 12:36 has it, the knock, only other place where Christ knocks in the New Testament is Revelation 3:20 for a lukewarm church that ended in an earthquake. Okay, so the Hebrew word also has a severe meaning for knock, dafak. They were beating the door down. So severe things are coming. God's going to punish the king's children, it says in Zephaniah 1:8. Ellen White cited that in her vision of an earthquake at Loma Linda. Why Loma Linda? Loma Linda is tied to Babylon. In Revelation 18th chapter, it says, come out of her, my people, partake not of her sins, that you receive not of her plagues, for by her pharmakia is the Greek word. Pharmakia, were all nations deceived. By pharmakia. Well, badly translated as sorcery. We somehow don't make the connection when we hear sorcery. We don't see that around. But pharmakia, yes. Adventism is up to its ears in pharmakia in all of its hospitals. And bad situation because it deceives people. They have their symptoms modified, improved. They think they're well, but they go on breaking the laws of health with tobacco, alcohol, caffeine. Millions are addicted to these things. And caffeine itself has a dozen different things that can do to you bad. I won't get into that right now, but anyway, God bless you for listening to this, and get ready. Let me suggest that the knock, which is the earthquake, is also the knock for the wedding, and this book, the earthquake and seven seals, is how we can make a covenant with Christ and be his bride. When God took Israel out of Egypt to Sinai and made a covenant with them, he got an ignorant bride that worshipped a calf 40 days later. Must not happen to Christ. Jeremiah 3:14, he said, "Return, I'm married to you." He regarded the covenant as a marriage, but it must not happen to Christ that way. And this is how we get he gets an intelligent bride with topics that have been leavened out of Christianity. Topics, I'll give you the example of the covenant itself. Christ, God, when he made a covenant with Israel, said, "Behold, I make a covenant. It's a terrible thing I'm going to do with you. I'm going to drive out the Canaanite." And he drove out those other nations, about 6 tribes really, but the Israelite prevailed, even though just like Jericho, the walls fell down, and they didn't have to be great military people. They were taken, and anyhow, Israel grew to be the greatest nation on earth by the time of David, King David. So let's finish up with this thought. Go to a website called Health, Happiness, and Destiny and get this book so you can understand how to be the bride of Christ with a covenant on 7 topics that have been edited out of Christianity, the covenant being one of them. EllenWhite's classic statement defines the church for the last time as a covenant-keeping people, and to them will be fulfilled all the covenant promises made by Jehovah to that ancient people. That was Prophets and Kings 7:13, 7:14. By the way, she didn't call it that. They changed the name of her book. Sadly, Ellen White suffered a lot of things that we don't understand, but let's pray for our leaders and hope that somehow they will repent. I'm not going to hold my breath till it happens, because God is going to punish, and I think it's because they aren't repenting. So see you later, and thank you for taking time to consider this. Let's see here.